Thank you, Neville. It's good to be with you here today. And I know we all came with a lot of questions, as we do every time we get together and talk about ID and traceability. And our organization, similar to Kansas Livestock Association, has policy on the books and has had policy on the books for a number of years supporting mandatory animal ID and traceability. But I think we all know that the industry is divided on that, otherwise we wouldn't be meeting today. So we're going to continue to discuss this and hopefully shed some light on this as we move forward with a system that can function in a voluntary mode, because that's the path that we're on today. But at some point in time, if politically we all come together and align on mandatory, then it'll be an easy shift, and we will already have a private sector database. And I think you've heard Dr. Scheer and others at USDA says we don't want to control the database, we need access. And I think in the real world that's probably the best model. So just real quickly, our pilot project, Texas, multiple state actually, is still being finalized. In fact, I hope to go back with a few ideas that we might actually tweak some of the goals that we have. So like Kansas, we have a goal of disease traceability. And there's a subset of information that needs to be entered into the system to accomplish that. We also have a goal of exchanging value-added information up and down the production and processing chain that hopefully will incentivize producers to put tags in ears. I think we've seen that in the past. The World Perspective study was referenced. We saw it on the survey today. I'm interested in putting a tag in the ear and jumping through hoops if there's some return to the producer. So we hope to facilitate that in this pilot. So, okay, I'll try to keep up with slides here. We started with our association and Texas and Southwestern Cattle Raisers Association, which represents the cow-calf and stocker operators in Texas, and representatives also of the auction markets. So cow-calf, stocker, auction markets, feed yards, a retail representative, and packer representatives. Just because you don't see a name on this list doesn't mean that we haven't collaborated with them or may not add them or may add them in the future as a collaborator as we move forward. Cargill Kentucky Beef Network, shortly after we got underway in our discussions, Kentucky ships a lot of cattle to Texas and the other major feeding states. They reached out and asked if they could be a part of this project. And we said yes, because we also want to test the interstate movement of animals. Our members buy a lot of cattle out of Florida as well. And so we're collaborating with the Florida Cattlemen's Association. I think they're working on a pilot with auction barns and adult cattle, cow-calf, but we're going to collaborate with the Florida Cattlemen's Association on feeder cattle movement, stockers and feeders moving to Texas. Cargill and Tyson were a part of our working group. IMI Global is our database manager. We are going to try to use everything that exists today and see if we can't tie all these pieces together. And then certainly the technology companies, Allflex, Datamars, Ytex, Fort Supply, and Microtrax. So our first goal being disease traceability. Again, IMI is managing that database. They're in the process of finalizing all those data points and how that might work and how data can be inputted into that system in multiple ways. So we're going to deal with an EID tag number, a date of application, tagged at origin or the next site. We want to test this concept of off-site tagging, which is very important. For example, we'll have a few thousand heads shipped off of the New Mexico ranch at the end of this month to a feed yard in the Panhandle. They don't have the facilities. We want to be able to tag, which we think is pretty easy to demonstrate. We want to tag those cattle at the feed yard, tie them back to that ranch of origin. If this system is going to work in the future, we can't expect all premises of origin and all auction markets to be able, and other points of bottlenecks, feed yards are a bottleneck, in some respects, as you look at the industry structurally, we can't expect all of those entities to be able to put tags in ears and read tags. So we're going to try to facilitate that as well. Each movement will be recorded, prim ID, physical address, GPS coordinates possibly, and then trace back information to with owner name, phone number, email. That data will be accessible to animal health officials. Primarily, we've been talking about state animal health official access, and then APHIS would work with them. That's not to say we might not be able to facilitate direct access to APHIS, but that's not the concept that's on the table today. We're going to use both low frequency 840 tags and high frequency, or excuse me, we're going to back up just a minute. We're going to use both 840 and 900 series tags. There are a number of producers around the country that expressed concern about the hoops to jump through on getting prim IDs. It's not that difficult from the people that we've talked to, but there are producers that would like to participate if they're allowed to use 900 series tags. We intend to facilitate that in this pilot project. We're also going to use all technologies, or at least that's the goal. Low frequency is the predominant technology today. That will likely be the predominant kind of tag that goes into cattle in this pilot project. But we also want to test UHF and also the UHF back tags to see if they can't facilitate speed of commerce through auction markets and other points of concentration where cattle come together. Okay, now shifting gears to the value-added differentiation to try to incentivize producers to put tags in ears. Again, IMI is managing that database for us. Our board decided last week that they would offer a $5 per head incentive, subsidy, whatever you want to call it, to encourage cattle going into the tags into ears and cattle going into the system. That comes with a hook, though. That will be paid when the appropriate data is entered into the system that the buying feed yard perceives as value. So there's about 30 different data points that are going to be populated into the database if people want to provide that, and IMI will capture that. But there will be a subset of that information, which we are wrapping up a survey of participating feed yards as to what do you need to pay the $5. So we'll create that subset, and that will become a prerequisite for participation in the program. Additional data value between the buyer and the seller. If the buyer and the seller want to negotiate some higher value to a subset of information, they're free to do that in addition to the $5. There'll be, as I mentioned, data sharing through all segments of the beef industry. And then if cattle are in an NHTC or a natural program that requires audit and verification, IMI will provide that. That will come at a cost, a separate cost or an above and beyond what the system is designed to facilitate today. Okay, so the cow-calf and stocker information that we're expecting and probably going to add into the system, again, this will all be finalized in the next week or two, will be the EID number, the animal, the origin of the animal, date of birth, breed. There'll be data cells in the database for breed, pasture type, supplemental feed, animal health and performance products that were used and the dates that they were utilized, weaning weight, and then BQA information that exists in some of the BQA programs. That's one of the reasons we're interested in working with Kentucky. They've got a very robust Kentucky beef network that's been around for a dozen years, and they've gone through a lot of this discussion and process. Obviously, these different data points have different values to the different buyers. We're going to let them sort that out. At one point in time, it was discussed as, well, let's establish a value for each of these data points, and we said, no, let's let the marketplace do that. So the feeder information, again, EID number, origin, if it hasn't already been established or traced back to the ranch, as I mentioned that example for the New Mexico cattle shipping the end of the month. Similar animal health and performance products and dates, feed yard performance, average daily gain, feed to gain conversion, BQA program information. It'll be interesting. I've already had a few people question me, are your feed yards really going to provide that? Well, we'll see. That's part of the reason for the pilot. The same would hold true on the packer information. Quality grade, yield grade, hot carcass weight, slaughter date, and hopefully retiring the tag numbers. Now, it's easy to say all these things. To implement it is going to be a different thing, but that's why we're doing a pilot project, and we expect to be able to accomplish that. So I hope that gives you a quick overview of what we're doing in Texas. As far as timelines are concerned, at least through the end of 2019, probably beyond that. Those have not been finalized. We're going to see how phase 1 of the pilot goes, and then we'll decide what we do in phase 2. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Averill.